All right. So, legs like those of an antelope. The eighth mark. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode, in a human form, the Tathagata was a reciter in an art, a science, careful in conduct and action, thinking which of these learnings can I quickly learn, quickly practice, without tiring myself for long, right? Without tiring myself for long. The divine refrain, on account of doing, accumulating, and increasing these commerce. After death, with the bodies breaking up, he was reborn in a happy destination. Now, what, right, was a reciter, a speaker, in an art, a science, careful in conduct and action, right? Careful in conduct and action. Because of these, which is known as the divine refrain, the Buddha and the Buddha had legs like those of an antelope, right? Legs like those of an antelope. The wheel turner refrain. On account of his being endowed with this mark, if he remains living a house life, he becomes a wheel turner, a Dhammaraja. These are the seven jewels, that is to say, we have read that, right? As a king, what does he get? Whatever that is worthy of a king, the qualities of a king that a king enjoys, befits a king, he obtains quickly. This is what he gets as a king. The Buddha refrained. However, if he becomes a renunciate, what does he receive? Whatever that is worthy of a recluse, the qualities of a recluse, that a recluse enjoys, that befits a recluse, he obtains quickly. This is what he gets as the Buddha. This is what he gets as the Buddha. So whatever is fitting of the time, whatever which is necessary of the time, he gets, he receives, right? He gets, he receives. This is because he was a reciter, speaker of truth, and he was careful in conduct and action, right? In refraining from that which is, bad, and committing towards that which helps in the development of that which is good. The next, the delicate and smooth skin, the 12th mark. All of these signs, as I have repeated in the class before, we must focus on in a way that is about ourselves, right? About our practice. What are we lacking? Are we lacking anything? What can we further develop in practice? Bound by this doctrine, right? Bhikkhus, in whichever past births, past existence, past abode in human form, the Tathagata was one whom recluses and Brahmins approached and questioned. What, Bhante, is wholesome? What is unwholesome? What is blameworthy? What is not blameworthy? What should be associated with? What should not be associated with? What, when done, is for my suffering for a long time? What, when done, is for my happiness for a long time? The divine refrain. On account of doing, accumulating, and increasing these karmas, after death, the body is breaking up, he was reborn in happy destination, right? And in this happy destination, he was above and beyond the other deities because of this divine refrain. And because of that, what was the great sign which was physically endowed? That was a skin so delicate and smooth, right? A skin so delicate and smooth, right? As a king, he was one with great wisdom. There was none amongst those who enjoy sensual pleasure who is equal to or better than him in wisdom. As a Buddha, what does he get? He is one with great wisdom, broad wisdom, joyful wisdom, quick wisdom, sharp wisdom, penetrating wisdom, without an equal or better amongst all beings. This is what he gets as the Buddha, the blessed one, spoken on this matter, right? So, what was the divine refrain here? How was it different from the seventh, or the rather the eighth mark, right? In the eighth mark, bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode, in a human form, the Tathagata was a reciter, a speaker of, in an art, a science, careful in conduct and action, right? Careful in conduct and action. And then in the 12th mark, delicate and smooth skin, what was the practice, right? Was one whom recluses and Brahmins approached and questioned, right? So what was it then? You see now the difference between those two, right? The before, it speaks about a refrain or committing to that which is healthy and wholesome. In this, it is to delivering that which is the truth, right? Delivering that which is the truth. Now, how many really, when we see patterns of behavior, we sometimes see people who, for example, we can relate to this because we all come from a Buddhist country, right? We see people who live in Buddhist countries yet do not know Buddhism, right? We see people who live very close and next to temples but do not know Buddhism. We see people who are part of religious organizations yet have no representation, or does not represent anything to do with what the religion stands for, right? Regardless of all of these things, sometimes whilst all that is available to you as options that you could go to, somehow you don't find your way to the practice, you don't find your way to the Dhamma. Right? You don't find yourself into this sort of teaching which could give you so much of mental relief and exit from suffering, right? This the Buddha here plays, if one gives another Dhamma, right? If one gives another the Dhamma, that is why even in this life, parents having taught children Dhamma not in a militant way. Now, I think most of I can't say us because I'm not parent, but most of you all might be sort of might be guilty of this. We are trained, or we are sort of programmed to spoon feed religion, ethics, ethos, Buddhist culture and heritage, and spoon it down children's throats. Even in the Dhamma schools, it's the same. In Sri Lanka, in Dhamma schools, it's the same. Kids are sent to Dhamma school Saturday or Sunday, and the kids who come out of Dhamma school, it is rarely that you find a child who is really into Buddhism, right? Even as a Catholic, I remember I also hated going into church school. They used to give us these disgusting vegetable sandwiches. Which after having come to the temple, we have to continue eating those. The typical vegetarian 3-layer ribbon sandwich, I think, but that's what they call.
Yeah.
Never liked it.
Carrot, beetroot, and lettuce.
Yeah, beetroot and carrot and something else. All three, which looks disgusting. So so I remember, even as a Catholic, I hated going to church school. Why? I remember specifically the father or sometimes the nuns would teach us, would not sometimes entertain some of the questions that the kids have, because when we would all sort of, the father or the priest or the nuns would speak about the end of the world and the beginning of the world and how sort of God molded, none of us were really into it. I remember my other Catholic sort of, fellow peers, we were all there because one thing, our parents are pushing us. The other thing is we love to socialize, just, play around with all the other kids, So, so the Dhamma school is kind of like a similar atmosphere, and it is very important. Dhamma is something which has to be allowed to be experienced. I believe that is why I am so much into Dhamma in that way, because I was not brought up with it, right? I was not brought up with it. Dhamma in this way is something which must be given to a person in an enlightening way, never shoved down the throats of children. This is very off-putting. This is very off-putting. And if we look at temples now, a problem that we have, and as monks we know, the world over, young kids don't want to go to the temple. And who can blame them, right? Who can blame them? When we are so disassociated from the reality that is their lives, why would they want to come listen to us, right? Why would they want to listen to the Dhamma? Because there is a clear disparity between the reality that is their life and the reality that we knew when we were kids. Even for me and young kids today, it's only been 10 years since I left school, but even that 10 years, the disparity is so large. Just imagine the disparity between your understanding and their understanding, or what they experience. This giving of Dhamma is always to be given. Remember, this is very important. Now we find people, every conversation that you have is something to do with the Dhamma. Every mistake that you do, they knife you down with the Dhamma as well. This is not what this is talking about, right? It is exhausting, I believe. It is exhausting, I believe, when people do this. When people use religion, Dhamma for everything, and the Buddha, I think we've all come across, the Buddha has related to this, where people use a Dhamma as a weapon. And the Buddha has said, no, you do not do this. The Dhamma should be given in a way where you think about them rather than imposing your view. When the compassion to the receiver of the Dhamma is to be there all the time, right? And that compassion is an open-minded compassion. We all have thoughts. We think that we know what is good for everyone else. But remember, in the Dhamma, we are taught to maintain a very open mind, right? A very open mind. Now, moving on. So this Dhamma which is given with compassion towards another person, also remember, a part of compassion is wisdom. No wisdom, no compassion, right? No wisdom, no compassion. In that wisdom, you know time and place, right? You know time and place. Now, let me, something that I, experienced during the past. So soon, in the coming next weeks, we will be starting in the memory of Venerable Jnana Deepa, who passed away about, I think, just about a week and a half ago, who was one of those eminent monks who spent about 40 to 50 years, nothing less than 40 for sure, in the forests of Sri Lanka. So in the memory of Venerable Jnana Deepa, we are doing a 5-week Satipatthana, sort of a course really, right? So in the memory of Venerable Jnana Deepa. So to help me with this endeavor, I texted a devotee. I won't call him a devotee, but we'll just call him a devotee, who is quite learned and all of this, Dhamma is very good as well. And I texted him and he sends me a reply with the Dhammapada and the Thera Gatha, and he says, there is no way that we can remember Venerable Yanadeepa, who was considered to be an Arahant and all of these other things. Now, this person is a person who has not even met Yanadeepa Hamdro, right? Now look here. Why would you assume that I don't know that? We assume in our views that we sometimes know better. Now, this is the dark side of this wisdom that we think about. This is not wisdom, this is jnana. We assume that we sometimes, that we might know better because one, we are older, or we know something which is deep in Dhamma, all of these things. The approach of giving Dhamma should always be in a way where you know time and place, right? Where you know time and place, and when you know when to use a Dhamma. The Buddha, in his interaction, did not use a Dhamma everywhere, right? Because then, how are you supposed to communicate with a person? You communicating, no one is going to be able to see through this because you are using now the Dhamma as a barrier, right? You are using the Dhamma itself as a barrier, which is not right. Absolutely not. This is to be understood. So, for example, with this gentleman that I texted, it was clearly a yes or no. Do you have the time to help? If we are to even do a memorial service for the Buddha, the memorial service is by no means a true representation of the greatness of the Buddha. That is clear, right? If I am going to do a memorial service for any one of you, that memorial service hopefully will be able to do a good representation of who you are or who you were, but clearly it is not going to draw full light onto the whole life that you had, right? Why is it our expectations with Dhamma are sometimes so unrealistic that we have a disconnection between reality and true practice, right? This is to be understood because I see when people go give Dhamma, we are not supposed to be like the 7-day Adventist people, who goes from house to house giving leaflets and converting people. We do not do that, right? That is not what our agenda is. We experience. The Buddha said, as long as there are monks who practice, the Dhamma will flourish. Why is that? Not necessarily because the monks are going to be going from house to house preaching or teaching, because people are going to be able to see a practice. The mere visual of the practice is going to help people to caress some sort of fire within themselves, which would aid in them thinking, oh, I should practice as well. Remember that. The Dhamma is to be shown. Compassion, don't speak about it. Show it. Show compassion with wisdom. Show compassion with wisdom. I had a very interesting discussion with the Dhamma school in Brighton, right? And because, the Dhamma school in Brighton, they are a Buddhist, they're the only sort of Buddhist ethic-based school in the whole of Europe, and also a mindfulness-based school in the whole of Europe. They are currently closing down because of the corona hit, which they have not been able to muster. But interestingly, the president, one of the things that she told me was, because it is a compassion, a sort of value-based school, when we tell parents that we can't admit another or take in another child on bursary, that we just can't afford it, then the parent would say, oh, I thought you guys are compassionate. Right? Oh, I thought you guys are compassionate. I thought this was a compassion school. Is that what compassion is? Right? Now that, remember, Compassion doesn't mean saying yes to everyone, because everyone might be going through suffering. The Buddha would always, now this might sound wrong, but please understand, would take care or speak about taking care of oneself first before helping another. The best example is on a flight, put your mask on first before helping the child, right? Likewise, we have, because why? Because if this person, this individual here is empty, not taken care of, the quality of compassion that we give to other people, right, is going to suffer. That is where children, we are very used to emotional blackmail, right? I remember I used to be quite good at it as well, you know, where you blackmail your parents, emotional blackmail. Now, emotional blackmail is successful as long as that person has insecurities, right? And as children, we are quite smart, you see. You know what your parents' insecurities are. So you really play at them, right? But you see, again, when you bring the Buddha's teachings into it, sketchy, cheeky techniques would not work any longer if our parents were more emotionally stable, right? Are more emotionally stable. So coming back to the Dhamma here. The next is the golden complexion, right? The golden complexion. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth existence abode or in a human form, the Tathagata was without anger. Tathagata was without anger. And because of this, without anger, intent or on not troubling others. Without anger or intent on troubling others. He was a giver, speaking to the many without anger, not fixated on wrath or ill will, with neither anger nor ill will, not expressing discontent. He was a giver of fine and soft coverlets and cloaks, of fine linen, of fine cotton, of fine silk, and of fine wool, right? And of fine wool. And on account of that, he was born in the divine plains with the 10 uh, with the 10 states, right? And as a mark, he received the golden complexion. When the sun reflected on this, it was like the sun reflecting on a brick or a piece of gold jewelry, right? It was a gold, beautiful complexion that even shone when the sun uh, rays hit the skin. And because of this, what happens? As a king, he receives fine and soft coverlets and cloaks of fine linen, fine cotton, fine silk, and of fine wool. And as a Buddha, he receives the same, the fine materials of all of these things, right? The finest materials of all of these things, right? And that is because of this golden complexion which he received because of the lack of anger, intent, or troubling others. This is a very important one. This is a reflection. This is a true reflection of what your heart is without anger, without the intention to cause hurt, suffering, and pain onto another person's life. It is a golden complexion, is a reflection of that beautiful heart. And that is the type of heart that we, as practitioners of the Dhamma, should have. A heart which is golden, a heart which, when shown to people, brings so much of delight. And in seeing this, People want to now give you something to suit that beauty of your skin, that beauty that you have outside. So what happened? They give you good cottons, fine silk, all of these things, right? All of these things, right? That is what the benefit of the golden complexion is. These things for me, reading them and going through them, and with the little experiences that I have had, for me, it just ticks boxes. It just ticks boxes, really, because at the end of the day, we know Western society, we try to tell, looks don't matter and all of these things. But when you really listen to people who've made it, who've, got through, they will all say, looks does matter. Take care of yourself, right? The Buddha has said looks matter. It is said, when you are a Dhamma preacher, the voice and the way that you look is very, very, very important. Why? Because we are dealing with mundane people. We are dealing with people who are attached to all of these things, right? So it is, in a way, also like a bit of a bait, really, right? It is also like a bit of a bait, really. But regardless, these baits are only given to drag people or bring people close to the Dhamma, right? But we never do pull people in. We just show them a light, and it is their own decision to follow or not, right? That is their own decision. So the 10th one, we are going to skip. Right? As a result of the sheath male organ, right? As a result of the male sheath organ, as a king, he receives numerous sons. Over 1,000 sons are his, brave, heroic in stature, defeating the enemies. Now these are all to do with those who are loyal to you, right? And as the Buddha, very similar, the disciples, all the disciples who are very loyal to you, right? And remember, loyalty does have a lot to do with enlightenment as well, right? You being able to stick with something, stick with one thing, to allow you the time to understand, oh, this might be good for me. This might be something that is actually helping. Some people are unable to do this, you see, right? Many people are actually unable to do this. Why? The minds are running everywhere. The mind is absolutely like that monkey mind that is spoken of, right? From one object to the other, from one object to the other, it's all over the place. So how can you, right? You have no focus. It's very difficult to even focus other people around you. Everything is in disarray. These things, even your mere ability, everyone, to sit down with your eyes closed, your hands, your palms resting on your lap and meditating for an hour, let me tell you, is a great thing that many people find difficult. This is not to say that you are better than the rest. No, 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 no. Right? It is to say that you have worked hard and you deserve that credit. You have worked hard. But all of us, we started from one specific point where we could not sit for much long, where we couldn't sit for a long time. Maybe even not for even 5 minutes, some of us. Right? Yet we slowly crawled our way up from that hole into a more mindful state. And you deserve that sort of credit for putting in the energy to do that, right? Now, moving on. The banyan-like proportions and knee-long arms, the 19th and 9th mark. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth existence abode in a human form, the Tathagata had regard for the welfare of the masses, knowing each and everyone for himself, knowing the uniqueness of each person. Thus, this one is worthy of this one is worthy of that. He is aware of each person's difference. The divine refrain, right? So, what is this? He had regard, care for the well being of other people. Care for the well being of other people. Now, we might sometimes think, oh, this is an easy one. We saw how easy it was when Corona was first announced and everyone was filling up their houses with toilet paper. You see, right? Where was it? You see, we like to time by time, time to time, we like to, sort of increase and reduce the frequency of these things according to how it suits us, right? Thinking about another person is not an easy thing to do, right? Because usually it is easy to do when it does not in any way impart on our freedom and our experience of life. But when it does, what we try to do is we are very territorial, very, very territorial about what is mine and what is yours, and the boundary between you and me. That is not a bodhisattva guna, right? That is not a bodhisattva guna, right? I was just before starting this class, I was a part of a meeting with everyone. It was more of a Dhammic meeting between people who are philanthropists and who are in the business environment. And the discussion was how the brain is not a part of the future, but the heart is. The brain has no future. What I mean by this is everything that you do, for example, all the accountants here, one day your field is going to be no more. It's going to be done by software that is written by something by a robot or by something which is technologically built. Most of your jobs that you do with a brain will be obsolete at one time. What is going to be of the future is not the brain, but the heart. Is not the brain, but the heart. This is becoming so. Even when we see young kids now, it's turning more to what is logically what we should be doing, to what makes us more happy, right? You see this with social media and YouTube and all of these things, changing these patterns, right? The heart, even within networking, people now, rather than just networking for business, people are trying to make friends through these networking circles. Again, the play of the heart, rather than just the play of the brain. Developing relationships, those days, we would all see suit and tie in office, but now they are becoming more casual and all of these things because they're focusing more on what really matters. It's not the suit or the tie, it's the work that you do and the quality of the work that you do and the way that you have a relationship with all your colleagues, right? That environment of you being you and the boss being the boss, that is also fading away. The boss is very much within the with the employees now. All of these things we see, the brain is going to, everything that you sort of focus on in your life through the brain is going to be at one point obsolete. It's going to be useless. And then the heart, the time the heart is arriving. Buddhism, again, is with heart. But this heart, remember, wisdom is something which is cultivated by both the heart and the brain. It is something now, remember now, by the brain, when I use the word brain, I'm referring to logic. When I'm referring to the heart, I'm referring to everything which is sort of bound by sort of love for things, liking for things, which is devoid of logic. Why do I like burgers? It's not healthy for you. By the way, I don't like burgers. I just took that as an example, right? Right. Um, you know, Sometimes you like certain things because you just like it. You don't have sort of full proof of that. That is what I'm referring to, the heart and the brain connection, right? And in Dhamma, right, in Dhamma, we try to tell ourselves, okay, this is the most logical thing. This is what's going to make us happy. We are thinking of the Dhamma and trying to embrace the Dhamma with the brain. No, we have to embrace the Dhamma with the heart. Feel it. See the beauty that it brings to your life. See the comfort that it would bring to your life. Teach that comfort to your children, not how Asoka and all these people did what they did. Not all of that. Teach the experience of what Dhamma is like, what it is like to walk into a room and be confident because you have not wronged anyone else in the room. What it feels like to be able to speak openly with a person because you have never spoken behind their back. Think that experience is what children are looking for now, right? Because children nowadays, it is more about the heart than anything else. Even if you take the most advanced educational systems in the world at the moment, it is not IGCSE or GCE. IGCSE and GCE is the most outdated, toxic educational system in the planet. It ruins children. It doesn't teach children anything. Did we learn how to really apply for a mortgage or anything which is actually useful in school? Maybe if you became an engineer or something, yes, the maths was maybe interesting and useful for you. But out of that, practical, what did we actually learn from school? Right? The new, more advanced, proven to be more effective systems all deal with heart-based educational systems. Heart-based educational systems. And the Buddha, 2,600 years ago, was talking about this without any of these sort of equipment. That is what surprises me about the Buddha's knowledge. How the mere fact, now this was not given to him by a miracle, the mere fact of excellent observation. How when one is able to close one's eyes and be truly alert, aware, the things that one actually discovers. That is what the Buddha's angle was, wasn't it? It was not given to him. It was not like Mahabrahma came and gave him the secrets of the planet. No. These were things that the Buddha, with his innate ability of observation, mindfulness, the wisdom that he developed based on that he was absolutely able to sort of cultivate and teach to us. That ability to observe. So your meditation should now be trickling down from your 2 hours or 1 hour of meditation, daily meditation practice into each and every aspect of your life. But the thing is, the way we interact with this word meditation, because of the culture that we have come with, is somewhat, of course, we respect meditation. We all respect meditation. But that respect itself, if you observe, it keeps us at a lower level than the meditation itself. I don't know if I'm coming through clearly. But every time that we would speak about meditation or achieving something through meditation, we always have this sort of level where I am here and the meditation is here. And this concept that we build in our mind keeps us from coming here. It always keeps us at a lower extent. This is something which again should be, this is all to do with the ego complex. That is why you would see, when you sort of think about all of these things and read the Dhamma and see what the Buddha had to say, it all seems the ego complex being the last complex to really shatter itself and go into destruction. It's no wonder, because it has so many cheeky, so many sort of interwoven mechanisms that is so complicated sometimes, to a mind that is not that stable, to a mind that is ruffled, to a mind that is not stable, right? And through all of these things, what we should be sort of getting to or getting at is growing more comfortable with the Dhammic practice and Dhammic life. So the 99th mark, right? Page 198. The Tathagata regards the welfare of the masses, so other people. And as a result of this, what happens, the bodily proportions are like that of a banyan tree, full, right, and well proportioned, and without bending. While standing, he can touch and stroke both knees with his hands, right? As a king, what does he get? He is wealthy, greatly wealthy, with much gold and silver, with much possessions and means, much riches and grain, with a full treasury. This is what he gets as a king. As a Buddha, he is wealthy, greatly wealthy. These are his treasures. That is to say, the treasure that is faith, virtue, shame, fear, charity, chaga, and panya. Those are the treasures of the Buddha. Why? Why? How? Because he cared about other people. He cared about other people. Give yourself a bit of time to just ponder over that fact. How does caring for other people's welfare give you Shraddha, Sila, Sutta, Chaga, Panya, Hiriyottappa, Sutta, Chaga, Panya? Right? Because these are the things, when you see society, when you care for society, these are the things that you train and develop within yourself in order to help you be a vessel to care for society. Without these things, no one trusts you, right? Without these things, if a person knows that you are lying all the time, or you are a gossiper or a gossip monger or someone like that, no one wants to sort of talk to you too much. No one will trust you with certain things, right? But if a person is virtuous, if a person has shame and guilt of that, doing that which is wrong, these things, people trust you, people welcome you, people let down their guard in front of you, right? That comes from a situation where people are more comfortable. Sometimes the fact of um, hindrances that are somewhat unstable are sometimes like kids. Sometimes, when we are in that atmosphere, high school or secondary school, everyone is uptight a bit sometimes, or most of the time. You care about what people say, you care about bullying, you care about who you're going to sit with during lunch or during the cafeteria time. All of these things. Why? Because of the hindrances being all around you. But when you're an adult, you're confident, you're comfortable, all of these things. Now those petty things don't happen anymore, right? At least that is the way that it should be. But I feel like we can sort of grasp what hindrances does to us, because the child is very sort of uptight. Mom, don't embarrass me in front of my in front of my my friends, and all of those things. But as adults, we don't see it as an embarrassment, right? Again, the hindrances, when they are all about you, right? Right. Those were the 7 treasures. And then moving on, the leonine front, well-rounded shoulders and chest, the 17th, 18th, and the 20th. Why? The Tathagata had the desire for the benefit of the many, the desire for their good, the desire for their comfort, the desire for their freedom from the yoke, considering how they might increase their faith, their moral virtue, their learning, their charity, their righteousness, their wisdom, their wealth, their grain, their field and land, their two-legged and four-legged animals, the sons, the women of their family, their slaves, workers, men, their relatives, their friends, their kinsmen, right? Caring about all of that. Caring, being able to be a person who serves and one who cares about all of that, right? In the one before, it was more specific to regarding, regard. I regard, that is the second, this part is a little bit more in depth. Here, one is actually thinking about, caring about, evaluating the best thing for the people around, their faith, their virtue, all of that, right? And because of this, his body front is that like a lion's, no furrow between his shoulders, and well-rounded chest, rounded and well-rounded, and a well-rounded chest, right? And because this, as a king, the wheel turner's conditions of non-decline, nothing is destroyed. Through that person's life, through the universal monarch's life, his wealth, his treasures, none of it is destroyed. As the Buddha, again, there is no decline in faith, virtue, learning, charity, and wisdom. Right? There is no decline in this. Only increases and gains. Only increases and gains. Think about it. Even in this life, have we gone through sort of cycles of your practice doing well and your practice doing bad? Hasn't this cycle been something which revolved again, happening, and it seems like sometimes it's a cycle on its own. Even with regards to your wealth, did it come and did it go? Did it come again and did it go again? Come again and go again? If that is so, do you think it is within your characteristics and your personality that you would care for people when it is convenient to you, but when it is not convenient, that you sometimes flutter in the care that you would give to people of your community, to people who live around you, to your friends, to your extended family, right? Now that is what it is. This is all about persistence. We are not talking about human beings. This is greater than all of these petty human beings who are conditioned by birth and death. Who are conditioned by birth or death. This is much more. This is much more than all of them, right? This is much more than all of them. Why? This is about the practice, this is about nirvana, and this is about developing that bodhisattva guna. Bodhisattva guna, right? That is what we try to develop through this. Moving on. Perfect sense of pace, the 21st mark. Because in whatever past birth, experience, existence, abode, in a human form, the Tathagata habitually harmed no living beings, showing them no violence, neither user, neither rod nor sword. The divine refrain on account of accumulating and increasing these karmas after death, with the bodies breaking up, he was reborn in a happy destination in heaven. There he surpassed Devas, and in these 10 states, right, he did well beyond the Devas. As a result, he received the perfect sense of taste. Whatever is at his tongue's tip is felt in the throat and pervades throughout, right? pervades throughout. Because of this, as a king and as the Buddha, they are free of sickness, free from pain. He has good digestion. He feels neither too cold nor too warm. This is what he gets as a king and as a Buddha, neither too cold nor warm, equable, conducive to striving, to a position where the body is able to go through the cold, the heat and the cold, right? Conducive to striving, conducive to striving. This is what he gets as the Buddha. Now, moving on. The 29th and 30th mark, deep bluish black eyes and long lashes. Dil, could you kindly read, please? You have to unmute your mic, Dil.
Page 203, 14th chapter. Deep bluish black eyes and long eyelashes, the 29th and 30th marks. Because in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode, in a human form, the Tathagata did not stare at someone in disapproval, nor did he look at someone in askance, nor look through the corner of the eyes in suspicion. But he looked directly and intently, surveying the masses with loving eyes. The divine refrain, on account of doing, accumulating and increasing this karma, after death, with the bodies breaking up, he was reborn in a happy destination in heaven. There, he surpassed other devas in these 10 states, that is, by way of divine lifespan, divine beauty, divine joy, divine fame, divine lordship, divine form, divine sound, divine smell, divine taste, and divine touch. And having fallen from the state, coming to a rise in the present existence, he obtains these two marks of the great man. And what are they? Deep bluish black eyes and eyelashes, long and shapely like a cow's. Refrain. On account of his being endowed with this mark, if he remains living a house life, he becomes a wheel turner, a wheel turning king, a Dharmaraja, a just king, conqueror of the four quarters, a country blessed with stability and possessor of the seven jewels. And these are the seven jewels: the wheel jewel, the elephant jewel, the horse jewel, the gem jewel, the woman jewel, the householder jewel, and the commander jewel as a seventh. More than 1,000 sons will be his, brave, heroic in form, crushing the armies of others. He dwells over this earth, bound by the ocean, holding it in his sway with neither rod nor sword. Page 204. As a king, what does he get? He is loved on sight. He is loved by the masses, charming to Brahmins, householders, market townsfolk, and country folks, accountants and chief ministers, bodyguards, doorkeepers, ministers, courtiers, vassals, and royal sons. This is what he gets as a king. And as a Buddha, what does he get? He's loved on sight. He's loved by the masses, charming to monks, nuns, laymen, lay women, gods, humans, nagas, and Gandharvas. And this is what he gets as a Buddha. And the Blessed One spoke on this manner, and in this matter, this was said. Not staring, not looking with a squint, nor through the eye's corner, suspecting, naturally straight, looking straight and intent, with loving eye, he surveyed the masses. The fruits of his karma, in heaven he experienced and enjoyed them. And here he has eyelashes like those of a cow's, and his eyes, a deep bluish black, good for looking. The great fine yogis, wise in science, many of them too, men with sharp eyes for fine detail, point him out as one who is loving to behold. Lovely to behold as a householder too, one at peace, he's beloved of the masses. And if he's not a householder, he would be a recluse, beloved of the many, destroyed of sorrow. Number 15, turban-like head, and this is the 32nd mark. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode in a human form, the Tathagata was one who led the hearts of the masses, the leader of the masses in wholesome states, in purity of the body, purity of speech, and purity of the mind, who had a share in giving, who kept to the precepts of moral virtue, who observed the precepts day, the Uposatha, who honored the mother, the father, recluse, Brahmin, the eldest in the family in accordance to wholesome duties in one way or another. The divine refrain. On account of doing, accumulating, and increasing this karma, after death, with the body breaking up, he was reborn in a happy destination in heaven. There he surpassed other devas in these 10 states, that is, by way of divine lifespan, beauty, joy, fame, lordship, form, sound, smell, taste, and divine touch. And having fallen from that state, coming to arise in the present existence, he obtains this mark of the great man, a turban-like head. The wheel turner refrain. On account of his being endowed with this mark, if he remains like a house life, he becomes a wheel turner, a universal monarch, a Dharma Raja, a just king, conqueror of the four quarters, a country blessed with stability, and a possessor of the 7 jewels. And these are the 7 jewels, that is to say, the wheel jewel, elephant jewel, horse jewel, gem jewel, the woman jewel, the householder jewel, and the commander jewel as a 7th. But more than 1,000 sons will be his, brave, heroic in form, crushing the armies of others. He dwells over this earth, bound by the ocean, holding it in his sway with neither rod nor sword. And as a king, what does he get? The populace are his followers, Brahmin householders, market townsfolk, and country folk, accountants and chief ministers, bodyguards, doorkeepers, ministers, courtiers, vasas, and royal sons. This is what he gets as a king. The Buddha refrained. However, if he were to leave the house for the home life, he becomes Arahat worthy, fully self-awakened one, rolling back the veil in the world. And as a Buddha, what does he get? The populace are his followers, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, gods, humans, nagas, and Gandhavas. This is what he gets as the Buddha. And the Blessed One spoke on this matter. And this is what he said. Although,
thank you, Del.
Thank you, Bhatt.
Now, we've gone through the dark bluish eyes. This is through the lack or the not staring or sort of making eyes at a person as disapproval. As a result, you have the deep bluish eyes with the long lashes, right? And as a king and as a Buddha, you are loved on sight. You are loved on sight to such an extent that even 2,600 years afterwards, we are still in love with the sight or anything that sort of appears or represents the Buddha, right? Represents the Buddha to such a powerful extent, right? Then we had the turban-like head, the 32nd mark, which was because who was one who led the hearts of the masses, led the hearts of the masses, right? And as a result, you get the turban-like head. Now the turban-like head, and as a king and as a Buddha, you are the populace of his followers, monks and nuns and all of this, you're very popular within all of these people. What does this mean? Lead the masses, leading people to do that which is good, right? If it is a dana or arranging, organizing something which is good, all of these things, bearing a sense of leadership, and with that leadership, guiding all of these people to good result, right? That is what it means. And as a result, you are very popular. You're very popular. And we spoke about this. It's not about the money. It's not about the wealth. It's not about that. It's about the retinue of people who are available to you when you have to or need to do something, right? And people bear a liking towards you and respect your word. Then we have single body hairs and hair hole between the eyebrows, meaning single body hairs, meaning from one pore, one hair. right? And the worldly air means the between the eyebrows, the sort of the ura loma dhatu. Yes. So the 13th and the 31st marks. And this is because single body hairs and the hair between the eyebrows is because of having given up false speech. Having given up false speech, abstain from false speech, told the truth, kept to the truth as is bond, trustworthy, reliable, no deceiver of the world. Please remember, this is not, right? This is not there was actually, I would like to relate this story. There was a monk who was living in London, and he was a very good monk with kept to his morals quite well, came from an aranya, you know uh, but none of us actually, I quite liked him, but towards the end he grew a bit annoying actually. And why is this? Because uh, his words were quite stubborn, right? They might have been true, in most instances, maybe the truth in the way that he sees it, but in the way that he was vocal about it, put a lot of people off, right? Now, by people, what I mean is monks, and even actually some lay people, right? So then he recently called me about 2 or 3 days ago, and he was complaining about, people sort of saying, and I said, Bante, you should know that, in this country, people will not be quiet, people will speak their mind, and you can't expect just because he has about 30 buses or something. So I was like, Bante, just because you have 30 buses in Sri Lanka, it doesn't mean anything in this country. People are not going to respect you for buses. People are going to respect you if you have a temple here. Other than that, no one really cares. So you have to know that in this country, when you are speaking to people, you should not speak in ways that it is like you are stabbing a person with a knife, right? It is the same thing here. Just because this does not talk about you speaking the truth in every place. No, it speaks specifically about you not speaking lies, that which is not true, right? Remember, remember that it is not about speaking the truth, it's about not speaking that which is false. That's what it is, right? And when it comes, again, as all of you have enough experience, things can be true, but you can't be speaking about it everywhere just because it's true, right? There's time and place and also way of articulating what is the truth. Because at the end of the day, sometimes there are instances that even the truth can be something which is relative, right? I mean, samuti satcha, right? So, moving on. Then single body hairs, and as single body hairs, and as a king, a populace follow his wishes, right? The populace follows his wishes as a Buddha. Whatever which is said, it is done. Whatever which is said, it is done. Moving on. Full 40 teeth with no spaces in between the 23rd and 25th marks. How has this been developed? Having given up divisive speech, right? Abstaining from divisive speech, what he had heard here, he did not tell there to break those people apart from these people here. What he had heard there, he did not tell here, right? He does not repeat, no gossiping, right? He did not tell here to break people apart from those people there, thus reconciling those who had broken apart and consolidating those who were united. He loved concord, delighted in concord, enjoyed concord, spoke words of concord. This is to bring people together, to not break people apart, right? Do not break people apart to bring people together. It is important to understand this as well, right? Now, sometimes, people, it is very funny how these things can be misunderstood. It is so clear in the Dhamma. For example, some people, I have heard people relating this to helping a woman let go of the abusive husband. Sometimes people can be so foolish in ways that they would say, no, because of things like this, which is mentioned in the Dhamma, we need to remain. No, this is not speaking about that, right? This is not speaking about that. This is speaking about sometimes, sometimes, for example, when we joke around, the joke is funny in that context only. The joke is not funny if it was repeated in a different context, right? In a different context. And we understand this. We all understand this. That kind of a joke, knowing that it is a joke and knowing the context, we use it as a tool to break up two parties. That is what we are referring to here. Where there was no harm, we brought harm into that relationship and broke people apart. Home wrecking, friend breaking, friendship breaking, families, all of these things fall into this category. Refraining from that. And it all starts with speech, right? Because of this, you get a full 40 teeth without any spaces in between, right? And as a king, his followers are undivided. And then as the Buddha, again, his followers are undivided. His undivided followers are monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, gods, humans, nagas, and gandharvas. This is what he gets as the Buddha, right? Moving on. The long tongue and perfect voice, the 27th and the 28th marks. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth existence abode, having given up abusive speech, the Buddha receives the long tongue and the perfect voice, having given up abusive speech, abstaining from abusive speech. He spoke words that were humane, soothing, loving, touching, urban, and delightful and pleasant to the multitude. As a king, what does he get? His words are respected by others. His words are respected by Brahmin householders, market town folk, country folk, accountants, chief ministers, bodyguards, doorkeepers, ministers, everyone. As a Buddha, he is respected by monks, nuns, lay people, everyone again. His word is respected. Why has not abusive speech is well received and respected? Right? Now these are things that should be taught to our children, I believe. Right? These are the things, the treasures of Dhamma, which must be given on. Right? Moving on. Then a jaw like a lion. So 22nd mark. The Tathagata, having given up idle chatter, he abstained from idle chatter. He spoke in season. That's a nice way of putting it. Spoke what was true, what was beneficial. He spoke on the teaching and the discipline. He spoke words worth treasuring, seasonable, backed by reason, measured, connected with the goal. And then, as a result, receiving a jaw like a lion. And because of this result, as a king, he cannot be overcome by any enemy or adversary in human form. As a Buddha, he cannot be overcome internally or externally on account of greed or hate or delusion by any enemy or adversary, nor by any recluse or Brahmin, Mara or Brahma. Mara or Brahma, or anyone in the world, right? Or anyone in the world. This is giving up idle chatter, speaking of that which is not useful. This is again not to say that you have to become overly serious in your speech, right? Where you speak only something in a, if you might say, in a more professional capacity. No, this is not to say that. It is to say that we do not speak idle chatter, that we, in our own little ways, in our own roles of life, that we speak words which bring comfort and happiness, and bring a sense of treasuring the words that are spoken by the person, right? By a person. Now, moving on. 20th, even and bright teeth, right? Even and bright teeth. The 24th and 26th marks. The Tathagata, having given up wrong livelihood, receives the benefit of even teeth and large and brilliantly white teeth. As a king, because of this, his entourage is pure. His entourage comprises of Brahmin householders, market townsfolk, and countryfolk, accountants and chief ministers, bodyguards, doorkeepers, ministers, courtiers, vassals, and royal sons. As the Buddha, what does he get? His followers are pure. His followers are monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, devas, humans, asuras, nagas, and gandharvas. Right? His followers are pure. That is very, very important, mind you. That is very, very important. And we know now, even for some very, very enlightening reason, we have a very good community of seekers at the Dhamma Center, which makes my life very easy, right? Very easy. And we know, we have had experience in certain establishments where, it is very difficult to associate some or most of these people, because every association ends up in some sort of gossip, quarrel, backstabbing, some sort of result, some as that, right? This is very important. What is a community like? Right? This is a result of good, wholesome practices, right? Good, wholesome practices. And here you see, having given up wrong livelihood, right? Having given up wrong livelihood. We do not organize Aurudu parties. We do not organize anything of that. When all our classes are regarding meditation and how to grow closer to nirvana and how to be inclusive, progressive in the most wholesome of ways. So we attract like-minded, equally pure crowd. This is within this life, we see the benefits of these things within this life, right? Within this life. Now, moving on. Actually, that is the end of this sutta. But that is not the complete end, right? That is not the complete end. We are going to go into the sort of the commentary on this sutta next week, right? We are going to go into the commentary of this sutta to go over what has been said about the this sutta, right? Or the commentary of this sutta, because there are a number of sutras which are connected to this specific sutta, right? So, does anyone have any questions that anyone would like to ask? Yes, sir.
One thing you mentioned, can you remember? I think it was the last class, in the Japirita, when they talk about the Dvatinsa Mahapurusa Lakkhana and Athitya and Kyanjana Lakkhana and Atuttara Samatam, and all those, then Chabbana Rasanya, they're all these different markings. That is Mahapurusa, Asuvanu Vyanjana, Ekase Atak Magul Lakunu. So is there, to break them up like that, is there I haven't got a, English because I don't know the Pali words. I don't know whether those 4 words that they give, whether they group characteristics for, either because of his followers or because of his wisdom, or is there anywhere in English translation for me to know what? Because I like when I chant this is one of the things I learned. I never chanted this part often, but about 3 or 4 years ago I went to Kotte and they had it, one of the big olden Kotte temples, the Kotpalandan, and I had not seen a Kotpalandan. Auntie Maureen, she's the one who Kotpalandan at that time. And so she invited me. That was my first visit to the Kotpalandan ceremony where I sort of knew the person. And there was a monk who came from America who sort of blessed this temple, because this is all connected to quite VIPs. And as a result, they chanted the Jayapirita, and only the Jayapirita 108 times. And so I then asked the monk, why are you chanting this? Because I don't think this is a Pirita told by the Buddha's words, like, the Mahamangala and the Ratana and all the Dajaga and things. So apparently, so this must be, and they said, no, this is very important. So I can see when you're saying, Bhante, that this is not about the Buddha, but this is about yourself. See what are the things that you have come to learn and to become whole for the journey back home.
With regards to the Jayapirita, it is actually about the Buddha. Because
it's about the, yes,
yeah.
But it's not a sermon told by the Buddha. Is it? No. That's what I mean.
It is not a Jayapirita is a culmination, a later culmination, but the wordings of the Jayapirita resonate not with it resonates with what the Buddha sort of was victorious over. Because it is a sutta, or rather it is a chanting which uses, or which is about determination, right? Which is about determination and the power of determination, right? So with all of that, it is to invoke amount of confidence based on the truth of the Buddha, right? Whereas in the Lakkhana Sutta, the approach was more of through the Buddha to see our own practice.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Bhante.
Yeah.
Very good.
So any other questions that anyone might have with regard? Also, I mean, what should we be doing next? What would you like, what kind of sutta would you like to sort of discuss next? If you do have anything in, yes, Damsri, I can see you leaping towards the computer. Yeah.
Shall we do Madhupindika?
Madhupindika Sutta?
Yeah. Because that has more of sort of Abhidhamma context.
Okay. I mean, all these suttas actually can be spoken, can be retaught in Abhidhamma, which is going to be, actually even the Vinaya can be taught with reference to Abhidhamma, and that is actually how we were taught initially, right? Madhupindika. Okay. Anyone else who would like to suggest a sutta that you would know? I mean, you can check.
Yeah.
Yes, Devika, you're trying to unmute your mic, I see.
Since we are meditating, Swaminasa, what about doing Sattara Satipatthana Sutta? Yeah,
now the Sattara Satipatthana Sutta, we are going to get done in 5 weeks, right? So that is going to be coming, right? Sattara Satipatthana Sutta is going to be coming, and that is the easiest way out for me. Because Sattara Satipatthana Sutta is so long, right? Yes. But, we are going to have 4 different teachers, hopefully, right? Who would be talking about Satipatthana Sutta. So for 4 days so that's 4 weeks. And on the 5th week, we are going to have a panel discussion where everyone can ask their questions from the speakers and some other guests who will be coming in, to sort of, from a practitioner's perspective. We are focusing on a practitioner's perspective, but we are not going to just, because sometimes practitioners are also, we find, can be a little bit out of touch because of the lack of the Dhamma knowledge. So we want to find a good balance of both the Dhamma knowledge as well as the practice of the Sattara Satipatthana, right? So hopefully we have a good group of people for that, right? So that is actually going to be on a day wholly apart from whatever which is going on now,
Yes.
right? So possibly a Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
Once a week on a Saturday or Sunday?
Once a week on a Sunday, most probably.
For 5 weeks, is it, Bhante?
For 5 weeks.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. So, all right. So, if anyone, are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask?
One quick question, Swaminathan.
Yes.
Did you get my email? I sent an email with few suggestions.
Did you? I did not get it, Devika.
I did. Remember, you asked us to send ideas because the COVID is coming and we'll have more time to do extra things. So I sent a suggestion. I'll resend it to you.
I did say it. I will revert.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you've received it.
Okay. All right. Yes, I did say it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
Shriyani is saying Mula Pariyaya Sutta. Okay. Lovely. So, okay then. I will see you all on Sunday. On Saturday.
Saturday.
Take care and have a good rest of the evening.
Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. Said one Sarnai.